Hi, this is the American Dragon Bryan Danielson, the best wrestler in the world, and you're watching the best wrestling talk show in the world, the Wrestling Roundtable.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. Rejoining the panel is Chris Harris, and appropriate timing because we are going to be doing the second Q&A, Submission Round 2. And first up is Sean from South Auckland, New Zealand. He wants to know, which ROH wrestler do you think can cut it in WWE? Anybody can cut it in WWE if they want it to.
Right.
I mean, Matt Sydal showed that. Who thought he'd ever get a job with his size? But you let him go on TV and do what you do, and he got super over. Right. So I think maybe let's just say, who do we want to see make it in WWE from Ring of Honor? Now, obviously, my favorite is Bryan Danielson. And a lot of people say about him that he doesn't have the look, he doesn't have the size, he doesn't have the charisma, all of which is completely bullshit. But you could do his style in a way, because he is very versatile, which is what you wouldn't expect looking at him, just looking at him. He is very versatile. And I think you could definitely get, if you want to say shooter, or a technical wrestler over in such a way that he would get a big fan following. It's pretty easy, and I won't tell you because I should get paid for that.
Who would WWE want to push out of the ROH roster? And by looks and size alone, I'd say Nigel McGuinness. He has an accent, they could do something goofy with that. And it's just something, they'll put him on SmackDown, really coming out with flags.
They could really make him to like the lean, like William Regal character.
Exactly, they could put him with...
Because they're both British.
Yeah.
Obviously.
But I mean, he's a good wrestler,
He's a
he's
good
got the
wrestler.
size. I think WWE could get behind him.
The Briscoes.
Now, see, the Briscoes could use WWE's marketing in TNA's ring, I think. I think their style is a little more towards the TNA audience with that sort of Ultimate X sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I know WWF does TLCs and Elimination Chambers and all that shit, and their marketing would be great. But it seems like they're almost more tailored, maybe, I don't know if it's because they're indie or whatever, but I think they're a little more tailored to TNA.
I think the region has a lot to do with it too. Guys like that from the South, would get over.
Delaware?
Well,
South
Delaware.
Delaware.
South Delaware. Well, anyone who's from New Jersey knows that once you pass like Atlantic City, you're south. I always maintain that they've got like the Hardy Boys thing going for them. They've got the Austin thing going for them, and I guess in the WWE they would have the Mick Foley thing going for them. That they're willing to go through like flaming glass tables.
Actually, that'd be more the Jeff Hardy thing, except they're much more the athlete than Jeff Hardy could ever hope to be.
But I think that would.
Is it anybody?
All right, Fraser from Scotland wants to know, is there a place for proper jobber or squash matches in wrestling today?
Why not?
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
1 or 2 on Raw and SmackDown. I mean, it's better than burying one of your guys.
How else do you build guys up there? How else would a guy like Goldberg, if he didn't start off?
Jobbers to WWE today are, we give them a gimmick and a name, they show up on TV once a month, and they get squashed.
Kung Fu Naki.
Like Val Venus ended up becoming before he got the
Bring
big
back
snow.
Roadblock. Ric Fuller.
All right, Abe from Augusta, Georgia wants to know, what matches should have been on either the Bret Hart or Ric Flair DVDs?
King of the Ring 94 match with Diesel I thought was pretty good, and then I would like to see that.
For Ric Flair, I can't imagine that they've gotten through 2 sets and no Hogan matches, Savage matches.
Yeah.
The match with Vader from Starrcade was great. For Bret Hart, I would have liked to have seen a little more Bob Backlund from 1994.
Right.
But also, my favorite tag match is probably SummerSlam 1990 with the Demolition 2 out of 3 Falls title change.
Yeah.
Elijah from McNeese Rocks, Pennsylvania wants to know, who's the front runner, because we're coming up to the end of the decade, for Wrestler of the Decade?
Kurt Angle.
Agreed.
Kurt Angle. From when he started, he's done anything from being over the face, over the heel. WWE put him on their different brands, and he's been an over which one. I think he put a lot of guys over Kurt Angle, no doubt.
Shawn Michaels. I don't like the guy whatsoever.
Oh, he's a piece of shit.
But you cannot deny that 2002 to now, he's been unbelievable.
He has had a lot of great matches, but I still feel he's a baby step below what he was in '96. So for me, Kurt Angle, I almost didn't even want to say it because he's such a psycho. Like this guy who just wants to kill himself out there. That,
But you can't deny his work.
You can't
what
deny
he
his
does
work.
in front of the camera.
It's a tie. There's just something that has to be said for somebody his age, with his injuries, that was more or less retired, came back, and when his initial run as a main eventer was from
Couple years.
96 to
2 years.
98.
Matthew from Ireland wants to know, what are your favorite quotes or catchphrases?
Best there is, best there was, best there will be, and Angles, 3 eyes.
Beat me if you can, survive if I let you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Woo! Catchphrases are fun to do, especially if you do an impression. But For quotes, I think the coolest quote ever was on a Thunder. Goldberg confronts Jeff Jarrett in the NWO 2000s locker room. Jarrett's there by himself. He grabs Jarrett by the throat and he pushes him up against the wall and he says, "You tell Bret Hart that when I see him, I'm gonna tear his heart out and eat it." I thought that was the coolest thing I've ever heard. Nick from Colonia, New Jersey wants to know, who is your favorite jobber of all time?
Reno Riggins.
The Goon.
The good Barry Horowitz.
No. Jim Powers. He was so close. He was on the cusp of superstardom.
I've got two from two different time frames. One, Mario Mancini. He looks like your dad put on a pair of blue underwear and got in the ring, which is how all jobbers should be, by the way. And the other one is Dave Burkhead.
Dave Burkhead is
man.
awesome.
Shane from New York State wants to know, the Shane wants to know, where will wrestling be in 10 years? Now that's a pretty heavy question, and it kind of goes along with the next question from Steve in San Antonio, Texas. Will there be another wrestling boomer golden era? I think it's
No.
kind of tied together.
No.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Wrestling's
I
been
don't see it
around
happening.
100 fucking years,
Yeah.
gone up and down, and you don't think it's ever gonna have another?
I don't say they're not gonna have a boom without viable competition. I'll see TNA
They're
being
gonna find
competition
the
in
next-
10 years, 20 years.
Eventually, they will find that next gold mine, like Hogan and Austin and The Rock. Somebody will come along.
Yeah, but
I
wrestlers
don't
didn't
think
come up
it's-
the same way that they did back then. They aren't trained the same way. Everyone's trained exactly the same. There's no more territories.
They're making money every year, and they're doing it with
It's
fairly
on the name
subpar
alone.
talent.
It's on the name
So
alone.
maybe not a golden era in terms of the time frame, but context is everything. We live in a very different world than we lived in 1987. Even when they tread water, they're going to be successful. They might tread a lot more water over time. It may not be noticeable. The litmus test is mainstream exposure.
I think ever
And
is
they got it with Chris Benoit. I mean,
ever is a pretty heavy word. Now, if we go by cycles, you would think by now we're way overdue for going into mainstream acceptance. Now, they are doing decent numbers business-wise. They're still making a profit for the time being. But do you think that perhaps the rise of UFC and MMA in general may have overtaken wrestling's golden place?
I think eventually it's really going to take a hit on their pay-per-view numbers. So I think more MMA is just going to get bigger. I think more
Well,
people will start buying pay-per-views.
Look at the numbers. The top 10 pay-per-views last year, there was only one wrestling pay-per-view, and that was WrestleMania. And that still was far below what the top two were.
And MMA is constantly building new stars. If we could get people just like Brock that are just marketing machines are really gonna, the difference is gonna start, the gaps can start getting wider.
but there's still going to be John Cena types, and there's still going to be, DX thing. I still think it's a completely different universe.
And look what they did with John Cena this year. That's not gonna help.
They probably sold more
Pay-per-view
merchandise.
numbers.
Didn't Cena sell more merchandise or something this year than Hogan's entire run or something?
That's an inflated number,
Okay,
not
but
adjusted
it's
to...
probably really close. He's probably selling a lot of
Oh
merchandise.
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But we have to go to break, so stick around. The second half of the Q&A is coming up, submission round 2. Welcome back to the Wrestling Roundtable. It's the submission round 2. More of your questions answered by the Roundtable, but joining us on the panel is Bret Simonello, a fan of 23 years, and the first question here is going to be, how much change do you guys see happening when McMahon finally steps down, or hopefully dies?
McMahon is a control freak. He has to have his hands on everything. So I think if you,
Even from the grave.
I think he has the right people where I don't think there'll be that much change.
The
at
right
all.
people? Triple H and Stephanie? Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, hopefully it doesn't have anything to do like with George Steinbrenner stepped down and
Business-wise.
his son's basically screwing up a dynasty. I don't want to see that happen with the WWE. Same thing that happened to the Yankees right now. I think Shane and Stephanie, they've been around it the whole
All right,
time.
first
They
of all,
grew
let's
up in
make
this
it
business.
let's make it pretty certain. It doesn't look like Shane's going to be involved at all. We're pretty much
You
going to
don't
have.
know that.
I don't know it, but it looks like it.
Because
Never know.
with the Steinbrenners, we won't get too off topic, but there are two sons. One of them was always into baseball, one wasn't. Now the one that isn't is running it because it was a disaster when the baseball son.
But Stephanie is Vince with the wig and two big tits.
But you
She's
don't know
the
if
s-
Shane's going to want to say, I want to take control of this now that Dad's gone because I don't want us to be.
Either of them is not going to be McMahon. They're
We
not
know-
as business savvy as McMahon.
We know who his real son is anyway. And I don't see the business
What are you
changing
talking
at
about?
all. I don't see any difference. I think Triple H and Stephanie are going to keep it running exactly like Vince did. Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
Ken from Georgia had asked the McMahon question. Josh from Aurora, Colorado wants to know, with Christian leaving and Kurt Angle rumored to be leaving when his contract is up in September, do you think this will waken up TNA, so to speak, to not look at so much WWE guys, not push so much WWE guys and look elsewhere?
Not at all. Not at all. They still see them as their money boys, their money ticket.
It's kind of like the WWE unemployment line.
Yeah, pretty much.
GNA.
Yeah.
Across the unemployment line.
Justin from Eagle, Wisconsin asking, should WWE co-promoter have talent exchanges? Now we know in the past, before they went national, they would work with New Japan, they would work with the NWA. Before they got back on their feet with attitude, in around 97, they were working with ECW as basically a farm system.
Right.
USWA, and even Japan with bringing in Sasuke and Taka Michinoku. But should they? In a perfect world.
Of course they should.
An exchange is I give you my talent, you give me your talent. When you don't have any talent to give, it's not really an exchange, is it?
So do you think if they were working with Noah and they said, give us your top guys like Kenta and
And then I see him
Marufuji,
on
here's
Raw.
Bob Holly and Mark
Yeah.
Henry.
Hey, if they can put up matches that
They probably
enjoy.
love Mark Henry in Japan.
Yeah.
Weeby from New Orleans wants to know,
Weeby.
what are your favorite shoot interviews? Well, first of all, most shoot interviews really suck. I really don't enjoy a lot of them, but I have listened to a lot of them hoping to get something out of them. The Cat was entertaining because he was ripping on the people the whole time, but for actual insight, Bret's always good, Cornette's the easy answer,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed Ahmed Johnson's too, believe it or not.
I enjoyed the outsider shoot.
I love Kevin
They're all-
Nash.
I
Yes, we can
enjoyed
all
the
agree.
outsider shoot. Hearing their takes on everything.
I don't know if any of it's
how
true,
they stir
but
some
it's
shit.
really funny.
Yeah.
The Dudley
And
Boyz
New
is
Jack
good.
is always a good time
Anybody talking bad, now that ECW is gone, they say anything they want. They'll tell you everything if you want to know it.
Martin from Ireland wants to know, should SmackDown be renamed WCW Smackdown?
No.
What's the point at this
too. Yeah,
point?
I see no points.
But- Starrcade DVD that just came out was one of the top selling items in Shop Zone. Now we know that WCW had a huge audience, even at the end, that pretty much when WCW went under, stopped watching wrestling.
Yeah.
WWF was under the assumption, well, if they want to watch wrestling, sports entertainment, they have to tune into us. So they were probably thinking our rating will double or at least get some sort of significant growth, and it didn't. Those people just stopped watching wrestling. Now a lot of them are watching 24/7 probably, or buying
Getting
some of these
DVDs.
DVDs
Yeah.
of some of the stuff they want to see. So, being that they resurrected ECW, a third-tier promotion that, even though it did have a big cult following, still wasn't WCW, do you think that maybe they should use WCW's name for this, or just leave?
No, why? Because it's not going to be WCW. You can't recreate it. ECW isn't ECW.
It'd be another
show.
bastardized version.
Exactly. It's going to be the same guys on Raw, same guys on SmackDown. I don't see a difference.
I agree with that, but I also agree with your premise that just putting those three letters there could make some difference in getting some. Oh, WCW's back.
Well, the
Or
numbers,
WCW's back.
the numbers show that people will buy it, as Starrcade DVD evidence.
Maybe have Jim Ross and Dusty Rhodes or something do commentary.
They're not doing anything better anyway.
I hate those three letters.
Yeah, sure. All right. Aaron from Washington wants to know, would Triple H be a 12-time champion and have all the power that he does if he had never married Stephanie?
I hate those three letters.
Maybe he'd be a 10-time champion.
I don't think his claws would be in his deep. I think he might be Shawn Michaels level now, where he's just the guy who sucks off McMahon once in a while. I don't think he'd be the guy who's going to be a billion-time champion every
Yeah.
goddamn time like this year.
Well, the only reason he's got that is because he mandated it to be so. And,
Mhm.
Ric Flair never said, I'm going to be a 15-time champion.
Would McMahon never shoot down an idea and never not go along with something Triple H suggests if he hadn't married his daughter?
That's true, but it's a point.
You never
But
know.
he still would be up there. He still would be up
We
there.
know.
Oh, he'd be up there. Yeah. But that's all the time we have this time for the second round, the submission round, the Q&A. We always like to hear your questions when they're good, so send them in, and please include your first name and your location to be considered. But that's going to be it this week for the season premiere of the Wrestling Roundtable. Next week, we're going to be back with another show. We're going to be talking about the Oscar-nominated and Golden Globe-winning movie The Wrestler, that's on the tips of everybody's tongue, and the best and worst managers of all time. So for the panel, for Chris Harris, Sal Randazzo, for Lawrence Haber, for Rodney LeConte, Brett Ciminello, I'm your host, Eric Santamaria. Thank you for viewing.